Hello, my PMPs, my technicians, everybody who sprays bugs for a living. Maybe some who don't and just want to listen to this crazy podcast. Welcome to the DNA Pest Control Podcast. We are going to keep on going with this little mini series that I have. Today is going to be a little bit different. Okay, today I am not going to talk about a specific bug like I have in the past with some of the other episodes. If you haven't listened to them, or actually I should say other pests, go listen to ants. We went on, I did one on ants. I did one on cockroaches. I did one on rodents. Today I want to talk a little bit about general pests. And I'm going to focus a little bit more on something that I personally run into, what I have a lot of experience with. So if you're out of the state of California or you're dealing with other bugs, well, just sit back and listen. So if you do move, you'll at least know a little bit about what we deal with. So the main general pest that we get complaints about or that we have issues with, or the hardest, not the hardest to control, but they can be sporadic at times. One of them is called the paper wasp. Okay, so a little bit about the paper wasp. There's 22 different species just in North America. Okay, so you probably deal with these in your state. And in other states, even here, sometimes we deal with hornets, yellow jackets. So you kind of get your different type of wasp or bee or stinging insect. But the paper wasp has 22 different species, has 1,100 different species worldwide, which is pretty nuts to even think about. But they get their name because of the nest that they build. So it's like a honeycomb looking nest, and they make little, it's hard to explain, but essentially they're little tubes that they are going to put their larvae in and everything like that. So if you've ever knocked one down while you're, walking around a house and it's an active nest, if you knock it down, you'll actually get some of the larvae to come out of the nest as it hits, because I've had it come off a 2 stories high. It slams the ground, guts are everywhere. Wasps are pissed off. I'm typically running, but when I come back, it's just, it's disgusting, but you get all these larvae, little baby wasps coming out of there. But it was kind of interesting to kind of read a little bit about them and kind of their behavior. So, it kind of goes specific on here. So unlike yellow jackets and hornets, which can be very aggressive, which they are. If you've ever dealt with yellow jackets and hornets, do not get close to where they are nesting. They will come at you. Me and a technician, we dealt with this at a house. They were in this little hole, and there were just swarms of them. I mean, there had to be so many of these yellow jackets, and we were spraying them from a good distance. But man, if you got up close, they started coming at you. Very, very aggressive. It was crazy. But so in here, so it's saying that actually wasps are not very aggressive, which I do agree with. I've only been stung one time in my 6-7 years doing this. And the only reason why I got stung is I was de-webbing around a house, and they had, there was a paper wasp nest inside a ladder that was hanging on a fence, and it was on the side of a house, and then it was super, super narrow, and I didn't even see it. Normally, I'm looking for all those things. I didn't even see it. I was de-webbing. I got too close. One hit me on the knuckle. Boom. I don't know if it bit me or stung me, because they can bite. But I got hit with one, and then I destroyed them afterwards. But that was just my revenge. But it does hurt a little bit. It's not that bad of a sting if you haven't been stung by a paper wasp. But one of the things is, if you're allergic, it actually can be very dangerous. So in a hole, paper wasps are pretty calm, and control is actually very easy. The only bad thing is you never know when they're going to pop up at a house. And sometimes they're flying over from another home. So a little thing about paper wasps is when it gets super hot outside, they need to drink water about every 15 minutes. So you always are going to see them floating around water because of the heat. The other thing is when it gets too hot, they will start to cluster in the shade, which here in California, unfortunately, that's right by the front door. And so you'll have these massive clusters of them right on the front door, right next to the front door, which, once again, they're not very aggressive as long as you're not bugging them. So if you're not, they have really good eyesight, so they'll follow you, they'll see you. But if you don't get close, you're not waving the pole around, you're not doing anything crazy, typically you're fine. But yeah, so that, so it can be pretty intense walking up to a door and you have 20, 30 wasps above your head. I've had that happen multiple times when I was a salesman knocking doors, and as a technician, you have to keep your eyes open. The best is when you take a new guy out. I don't know if you guys have had this experience, but he's de-webbing a house and then he hits a nest and they just start freaking out. I love it. It's the best because they just drop the pole and start running. Oh, it's hilarious. But one thing is wasps go after motion. And so over my experience, if you're going to take care of a wasp nest, a lot of homeowners are always like looking in the window, all freaked out, like what's going on? What is he going to do? Is he going to get stung? Is he going to run? The thing is they go after motion. So once you hit a nest down and you don't move and you keep that pole, they're going to keep dive bombing the end of your, web head. They're going to just keep hitting it and going after it until they get exhausted and go away. But if you don't move, they actually don't come at you. They're pretty. They don't associate you as the thing that attacked their nest. They're associating the web head, and so sometimes I'll even shake the web head and keep moving the web head while they're freaking out at it. But they won't actually come at you and attack you. They don't associate you with taking down the nest. So kind of interesting thing there. So as you're going around houses taking care of wasps, just remember, don't drop your pole and run, because that's when they are going to probably come after you because you're that next thing that's moving. But the other thing that works really well with wasps is any termiticide, anything that for ants is going to work very, very well with wasps because they are social insects. Their behaviors are actually very, very similar, just like honeybees, very, very similar. Wasps are a little bit different because they don't have necessarily a queen, but they're very similar to ants and honeybees. And so when you get a product that has that transfer effect, which essentially means once they get the product on them, it doesn't kill them right away. But what they'll do is as they're crawling all over each other, they're transferring it to the next one. So there's a product here, which is Termidor. I think that's all, I think that's nationwide for termites, if you have termites in your area. But that's a really phenomenal product, and it lasts so long. So a little bit about Termidor. I don't want to go too far into it, but I was talking to one of the representatives. Essentially, Termidor doesn't break down. As it breaks down, it just breaks into smaller particles, which keep killing. So that it doesn't really break down and eventually go away. It just, once it breaks down, it just keeps separating and separating and separating and becomes smaller and smaller. But Termidor just stays. So it's going to keep killing and killing and killing and killing, which is really kind of cool, but bad for the environment at the same time. So you have to be very careful what you're spraying, where you're spraying, how you're spraying it. But per the label, you can actually spray a nest, which is awesome because you spray the areas where they are, and you won't see a wasp there for at least a year. And you say, like, man, no, you don't know that. How do you know that? I did it. So I sprayed areas. So I sprayed nests in a few different places. I did it at a lumber yard once, and it messed these things up. They weren't there for about 2 years while we were servicing this place. And I've done it at homes. Another good product is Alpine. Alpine, if it's at a high enough dose, will actually kill them very, very quickly. Once again, label law, follow the label, but that has the transfer effect. So you don't want to go too high because then you'll just kill that specific wasp. Now, if you're spraying the nest, directly, you're going to kill them all eventually because they're going to come back to the nest. But yeah, wasps are one that we always run into. We always have them along fence lines. You're going to see them. I wish I actually looked this up. I didn't look this information up, but they're always on certain sides of a house, and it's only two sides of the house. And I don't know what direction that is. I got to look up why that is. And I'm assuming it's because of heat or something. It's got to be for that reason, I'm assuming. But they're literally only on two sides of houses. You'll hit another side, they won't be there. The weirdest thing. I wish I knew someone who was a bit of a wasp expert, paper wasp expert. But so control fairly easy, knocking down the nest, but make sure you treat. There is a product out there that's called Wasp Freeze. It smells like WD-40. It's the weirdest thing. I do not suggest using that because what that is, it's a contact kill. So it essentially paralyzes them instantly, drops them. That's why it's called Wasp Freeze. But it's a contact kill. It's very quick. It doesn't last, so it's not going to kill anything afterward. So I wouldn't necessarily use it, and it soaks everything. It's just a mess when you use it. So we actually stopped buying it. But if you're in a bit of a crunch, you got to hit something. It's a massive nest. There's a ton of wasps on it. You need to just kill it really quick. That's a great one to use. But if you can use other methods, do that. And usually what I'll do is I'll let the customer know, hey, look, I'm going to spray your nest today. Next time we come out, we'll knock them down. That is going to make sure that we eliminate all the wasps on your property. So a little bit of education with them actually helps with controlling wasps. Okay, so I went a little bit longer than I wanted to on that. But, okay, another one that we deal with here in California a ton is, actually I think everybody does, spiders. A big majority of our job is taking down spider webs. Now, daddy long legs, I don't know exactly the technical term for those spiders, but those spiders are fairly easy to take care of. You're constantly knocking down the webs, you're killing the bugs, or you're infecting the bugs, which then get eaten by those spiders, which die very quickly. Most people actually don't care about those spiders. Big one here that everyone cares about is the black widow. Okay, so very, very interesting facts with the black widow that I learned, and I had no idea. So I've been lying to my customers. No, actually, I haven't been, but there's some really interesting things. So a lot of people, we have this idea that the black widow actually eats the male after they mate. So that actually is only in controlled environments. Scientists, when they were doing these experiments with mating black widows and seeing what was happening, that is when the female black widow would eat the male because the male couldn't escape. So it has this famous name of widow because of that. In all reality, that's not what happens in the wild, which I kind of was like, oh, wow, that kind of just ruined everything that I believed in. It kind of shook my world about black widows. But no, black widows actually, males choose the female that has just eaten, so they won't die. They're not actually trying to die, and it's not a sacrifice. It's not a noble act by the male. They actually don't want to. So what they're doing is they're actually trying to find the female that just ate, so they're not going to eat the male. But the whole point of eating the male afterwards in a controlled environment is because they're trying to provide enough food for the young to allow them to live, the most, out of the young will live out of the eggs. So kind of interesting. Also, black widows have a ton of different species. So you may not deal directly with a black widow. You may deal with a brown widow. You may deal with, what is it called? The North American black widow, or let me see here. I had it. Where is it? There's a European black widow. There's, I don't know where it went. It's gone. It's gone. I don't see it. Okay. But there's a ton of different types of black widows. Another thing is that I assumed was people would die from black widows. So according to this, where is it? Look, now I can't find anything. Oh, maybe I got to do this here. Let me see. Sorry. Here we go. Okay. So let's see. So each year there's about 2,200 people. Wow. 2,200 people that actually get bitten by a black widow. Most of them actually don't even need to get treatment, which I heard black widows aren't actually that deadly. You just have to go either get fluids and things like that. Because depending on the bite or however your body reacts, it could be 3 to 7 days or up to several weeks of, the body aches and everything of the symptoms of the bite. But it was really interesting that since 1983, so this is from Poison Control, the Poison Control Center, there has not been one reported death from a black widow since 1983. That's nuts. I actually thought there was more people dying because we have this idea that black widows are so vicious and they attack us and but it's actually not true. So black widows actually don't attack us unless they feel threatened. Black widows are pretty docile, so they're not actually going to come at us. The other thing is a lot of the time they have a dry bite, meaning they'll bite you, but they're not going to actually inject venom. So a lot of people who get bit by black widows may have the pain of the bite, but actually no lingering effects because it was a dry bite. Which another thing, I didn't know. I didn't know that they could actually control that. And black widows could have a dry bite or even just bite you and not inject you with venom. So really interesting. So now I know a little bit more about black widows and how really not to be afraid of them, as much as what we think. Now they're still nasty and I'm not going to be playing with them, anytime soon or ever, but still going to be stepping on them and spraying them. But really cool, really interesting about that. The other thing is they can actually produce up to 4 to 5 egg sacs, depending on how healthy they are. Remember, that's always that's always how it is with insects. But so depending on how healthy they are, they can have 4 to 5 egg sacs a summer here in California. And each egg sac can contain up to 500 babies. Okay, 400 to 500 babies. So obviously those don't all live. A big majority of them are actually going to die. And that's why you only get a few black widows that you see around properties. But now you can kind of have that peace of mind when you're going and treating a high infested area with black widows, or even talking to a customer who is terrified of spiders. You may be able to put them at ease with some of these facts about black widows. Now, the other thing is, when it comes to treatment with black widows are actually fairly sensitive, and this is what I've noticed over my years of spraying. Black widows are very, very easy to take care of. One, because they typically hang out down low. They're never up high unless and this is in rare cases of a high infestation around a home, I'll see them up in the eaves. Typically, they're never up there, but sometimes they are. So where you're spraying around a foundation, around bushes, things like that, they're hanging out right there. They're going to die. The other thing is a lot of spiders actually ingest their webs when there's a scarcity of food. Okay, so they'll go back through and actually eat their own web. So not knocking down webs and spraying them and then coming back and knocking them down later may be a really, really good way to take care of spiders. Problem is customers aren't going to be happy about that. But black widows, you spray their web, you may not see their web or it may be hidden somewhere, but you spray it, they ingest it, they're going to die. The other thing is they're all over their spider web, and they're all over the ground. They're hunters at night. You'll see them coming out at night. So any of the insects that you're spraying that end up getting caught on that web, they're going to eat it. They're going to die. And since they're down low, it's more likely that they're going to eat insects that are infected, which are going to wipe them out really, really quick. So gaining control over black widows is actually very, 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 very easy. Now, we use a couple products. One that works absolute wonders on killing spiders very, very, very fast is Essentria IC3. Essentria, for whatever reason, that wipes spiders out fast. So you'll kill a black widow with a low dose of Essentria in minutes, 5 minutes or less. So the contact kill on that is crazy. But we wipe them out really, really easy. So control over spiders may be tough in areas where there's high amount of water. You can still take care of black widows fairly easy, but you're going to have issues with other spiders. You're going to have a lot of issues with the daddy longlegs, the jumping spiders. More bugs, more spiders. That's just how the rule goes. They're hunters. They're going to find, they eat, they consume. Where that, where's my meal? That's where I'm going to be. And so spiders are always a tricky one for a lot of us, but treatment is super important when it comes to controlling spiders in general, not just black widows. Where you're spraying, what product you're spraying, where you're taking down the webs is another area where you should be spraying. So a lot of the times we focus around light fixtures. So we're not going to be spraying the light bulb or anything, but we're spraying around those fixtures because eventually those flying insects are going to get there. They're going to get our chemical on them. Spiders are going to ingest them. They're going to die. So you need to use where, certain sources are, where those spider webs are, where the flying insects are going to be. Use that to your advantage to take care of a spider population. Another one here, and this is actually when I lived in Utah, this was a huge problem out there. So any Utah listeners, this is something that you guys are dealing with, and I know you are because I dealt with it when I was there. Earwigs. So earwigs are, man, there's something else. They're a mystery in them, they're just a mystery to me. So they actually thrive in high moisture areas. That's where they reproduce. That's where they're laying their eggs. That's where everything's going on is high moisture areas. But the problem is you get a lot of them inside. So in California, there's a lot of raised foundations. What happens underneath the raised foundation? Moisture. You get a lot of moisture. You're going to get a lot of insects, mostly the ones that can thrive. So springtail are a big one. And earwigs. So earwigs are always going to be around a house, and this is year round. So some of these are year round bugs. Spiders are year round bugs. I remember having a guy come out and spray the house in the winter in Utah because there's spiders inside. So spiders are kind of are going to be a year round pest. Wasps are not going to be a year round pest. You're not going to have them. Right now in the winter, we don't see them. There's none out there. Surprisingly, you actually get some honeybees still going. But wasps themselves are gone. So they're hiding somewhere. They're hibernating. They're waiting until it's warming back up. So August is usually June, July, and August are massive months for wasps. And it'll start up again. Every year it happens. Every year it's intense. Every year they go away, and then they're right back at it. So those are seasonal pests. Spiders are not. You're going to get those all the time, all year round. Earwigs are another one. Those are all year round. I just saw one on my driveway last night, and it was looking to get inside the garage. And so you always see those things everywhere, and they're always just exploring, walking around, but they thrive in moisture. So a big way to actually control earwigs is not by spraying. A lot of people hear, oh, I got earwigs. Oh, great. I'm going to spray heavier inside. I'm going to spray heavier outside. That's actually not how it works. So when you control the moisture around the house, it's where you're going to control the earwigs. Now, that's not all the time. That doesn't work 100%. So, I mean, spraying is going to help because you're going to kill them, but controlling the moisture is where you're going to control their home, their environment. They can't thrive in dry areas. They can only thrive in moisture. So eliminating that and spraying, part of the IPM program, is going to make it a massive difference around properties. So letting people understand, hey, controlling the moisture, you got to turn the sprinklers down. Unfortunately, when it's raining, that one's a hard one. There's only a few things you can do. You can dust outlets. You can do, dusting in all sorts of areas, even in windows. There's little vents at the bottom of windows. You can dust in there. That helps preventing them from coming inside. But if there's a crack in the foundation, sorry, they're going to get in somehow. That one's hard, just like ants. You can try your best to seal everything up, but man, ants can just find their way through anything. So good luck, but it's just not going to happen. But you got to let the customer know, educate the customer. This is what we'll do. And a good tactic with earwigs that I've done at a ton of properties, ton of houses, you set out glue boards. Glue boards is a massive one, even with spiders, actually, because spiders hold their body up off of surfaces. So a lot of technicians have a problem controlling spiders for that specific reason. They never actually come in contact with the product. Sometimes they get it on their legs, but that doesn't actually make its way to the body to where it actually can do any of, so it can take care of it. So it actually doesn't affect the spider in any way. So you have to create other methods, other, ways. And glue boards are a great way to catch a ton of spiders. And obviously earwigs. So getting and gaining a lot of control over the earwigs is going to be with the help of the homeowner, sealing everything up, keeping everything closed, keeping moisture around the outside of the property low, different things like that. So that's a huge one. Now, another one I'll talk about is something that we don't actually guarantee, but we'll treat for it. They're flies, and I'm not going to go into specifics on flies because there's the small house fly, there's the forward fly, there's the fruit fly, there's a ton of flies. So I'm not going to go into specifics with flies, but flies is going to be a huge cleanliness issue depending on the fly. So letting people know, letting your clients know what to do around the home to control flies is a big one. There are some actually really cool products out there. There's this, I'll try to look it up while I'm explaining it. So essentially what it is actually a sticker. It's a clear sticker with with product on it that you can stick onto a window and it will kill them. Let me see. I'm pulling it up. So as they're flying around the windows and everything, you can actually just stick it on there and boom. Oh, right here. So it's by FMC. It's called End Zone Insecticide Sticker. No, they're not paying me to push their product, but they should. So really cool. It's just this clear sticker. You stick it on the window where you're seeing majority of the flies. They hit it. They're flying all over it. Boom, kills them. Now, the only thing that with flies you got to be careful with is they reproduce so fast, they can eventually build up an immunity to insecticides. So that's why you get the fly bags where they'll go into, they get trapped, they die inside there. So there is no actually, they can't get immune to anything because they're dying because there's no food or anything, or they're drowning. The other one is a sticky trap. For hanging from a ceiling. If it's in a food establishment, you actually have to be careful. You can't put that above food prep areas. And you're going to want to educate them to take that down if a health inspector is coming. But you have a few things. The clear stickers I like because you can't tell that they're there unless you know what you're looking for. So it's actually really nice. The other thing that you can do is fly lights. Fly lights I don't suggest in a home because homes don't use, majority of homes shouldn't have a massive fly issue depending on the fly. So fly lights should be only in restaurants, warehouses, places like that where they may have a reoccurrence or, a problem. But in some cases, you don't even need to use some of those things. They even have the vents or the blowers that go above the doors to, have an invisible wall because there's airflow that prevents them. But a big thing that people just need to do is make sure that there's no decaying plant matter outside. They cut the grass, but they have the bag that goes, that takes all the grass clippings, and you can throw that away. And then we can do our part. We can spray around those garbage cans. So to kind of help that. But then also, dogs, they got to go to the bathroom. So you have a ton of these landmines on the lawn, and then they wonder why they have flies everywhere. Well, if they don't clean up after the dog, they're always going to have flies. So, but flying insects are always a little tricky because if they don't come in contact with the product that we're using, they actually won't ever die. So, it's something that, once again, it comes down to education with some of these general pests to take care of them. Is you're going to just have to educate the customer. It's getting smarter about being open with them. We're problem solvers here. We're the professionals, just like doctors. You feel a pain in your knee. Me as a doctor, how am I going to alleviate that pain? How can I get it away? Most of them just throw drugs at you. Others will walk you through a process. This is how you can get rid of it without taking a ton of drugs. So same thing. You have a ton of flies. This is the process that you can take to eliminate the flies. I can spray everything I want. Not going to guarantee to eliminate the problem. Okay? Just like a doctor. I can throw a ton of pain pills at you. The second the pain pill goes away, you have the pain still in your knee. We're not taking care of the problem long term, which we can do with these general pests with customers. Some cases we can seal around holes. We can do exclusion work. That's part of the IPM program. Other things we can't do. There's not really anything we can do, because they have to turn the water down. They have to eliminate buckets of water around their property. We can dump them out while we're there, but if they leave them open and it rains and it fills up, well, we can't do anything at that point. So education is a big part of taking care of general pests as well, which now talking a lot about IPM, I'll go into IPM, not today, but I will talk about the IPM program because a lot of people are probably like, whoa, what's IPM? Well, I'll explain it, so don't worry about it. Wait for this Friday. IPM episode's going to drop. You'll get all the information you need. But education over general pests is going to be a massive one. So help your clients know that there are permanent solutions to certain insects, but also be smart and understand what insect you're dealing with, what type of wasp do you need to take care of, and how can you eliminate those issues. What types of spiders are around the house in your area? What are you dealing with specifically? Are you having someone who has arachnophobia? How can you help them understand black widows look more scary than they actually are, and we can take care of them. And this is why, and this is how, and same with, little things like flies and earwigs. How are you going to take care of those situations when you're running into those? And there's a lot more insects that I haven't even covered in this little section of general pests. But be smart about it. Educate your customers. Treat in the best way possible. Be thorough, because that is a massive way to control spiders, earwigs, wasps, flies, and other general pests. Being thorough with where you're spraying, how you're spraying, and how and where you're taking down webs is going to be another good indicator of where you need to spray. But thanks for listening to General Pests on the DNA Pest Control Podcast. Remember, you can always message me on Instagram at DNA Pest Podcast. I do respond. It may take a little bit, but I will respond. But thanks for listening, everybody, and have a great week.